here of Through the Black, and I just want to take a quick minute here and introduce this video to you. During my research today, I came across this old footage of a Larry King interview where he interviews two sisters that have a satanic ritual abuse testimony, and then he brings on a guy by the name of Jeffrey Victor to kind of debate them and challenge them. And Jeffrey Victor is like these guys that always show up who believes that they were coaxed, that these memories are not real, that satanic ritual abuse is a myth. So, but again, here we have somebody, two sisters who sued their parents, who sued their mother for the crimes of satanic ritual abuse. Another testimony of something that they say is not real. And again, more and more evidence is coming out, whether it's cold cases or whether it's new cases like what we just seen with the Carly France video that just came out, and she tells her testimony about the Freemason satanic ritual abuse. So anyway, I thought I would share this with you, and let me know what you think. We appreciate it when you like us, when you share us, when you subscribe. Okay, bye.
Turner. It was one of the most sensational trials in California history. Two sisters accused their 76-year-old mother of sexually abusing them as part of a ritualistic satanic cult. One of the siblings, Bonnie, is at our studios in Los Angeles. Her sister, Patty, joins us by phone. When, Bonnie, did this lawsuit take place?
The lawsuit was over a period of about 4 weeks that ended at the middle of April.
And what was the result?
The result was a 10-2 verdict in our favor. It was a civil suit, so it didn't have to be a unanimous verdict.
And what were you suing for?
Well, we were suing Mother for sexual abuse in a ritualistic kind of setting, and was for monetary damages because that was our only recourse at that particular time.
Did you, Patty, on the phone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Did the jury award money?
No, they did not.
What did they award?
They didn't award anything. They found her negligent, but they did not award any money.
Saying because she didn't have any money, or they felt there were no financial damages?
I'm not really sure what was in their mind. I believe that it was very difficult for them to hear what we had to say, and I really recognize their courage in even being able to go so far as to believe our story.
You regard it as a victory, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Bonnie, when did all of this take place? Let's get a little history. What happened?
Well, the abuse began when I was just an infant and continued at least until mid-20s.
This is your mother and father?
Primarily with Mother at first, and then my father was gradually drawn into that aspect of it.
What kind of abuse?
There were many different kinds. Sexual abuse was involved. There was some physical abuse that included some scalding and things like that when I was very young. As my father began to be more drawn into it, it included child prostitution and things like that, as well as actually being drawn into groups where there were ritualistic practices going on.
Patty, this was through your childhood, age when to when, like?
Well, from infancy, and I have not remembered when it stopped yet. My memories have not shown me when the abuse stopped.
But when you got into adulthood, couldn't you just walk away?
No, because I didn't remember it. I was completely dissociated.
How old are you now?
I'm 35.
Bonnie, when did you walk away, or didn't you walk away?
Well, it's difficult for me to say exactly when it stopped either, because like Patty, I haven't recovered all of my memories yet, but I do know that, as she did, I had developed dissociative capacities, including multiple personalities, and so I had no way of even knowing it was going on with my normal outer conscious
Why sue? If you've gotten through it, if you've been helped, what's your point in suing a 76-year-old lady?
Well, the concern that we had was that not only were the two of us involved, but also my daughter, who's now 11, had been involved up until 3 years ago with her grandmother. And as far as I have no way of knowing if she has stopped to this point, My sister and I made every effort we could to get her into therapy because we believe that she also has multiple personalities and that she needs help. When we weren't able to do this, then it seemed like the only recourse we had to begin to make this known so that it could begin to stop was to go to the courts. So that was the purpose,
is this
much
true
more
that
than
that
any kind of monetary consideration.
Is it true, Bonnie, that you were made pregnant while age 11 and part of this cult? Is that true?
I can't hear anything.
Were you made, can you hear me now? Okay, Patty, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Bonnie's lost...
I can hear you now.
Okay,
It just
all right.
came back.
Okay, Bonnie, you were made pregnant when you were 11 years old?
Yes, I
And
was.
Had a child?
Yes, I did.
Is that your daughter?
No, not this daughter.
What happened to that child?
That child was sacrificed within the cult when she was about 6 months old
Sacrificed how?
by being stabbed, and I was coerced into doing the act myself with my own child.
The police never found out about this?
The groups are extremely careful to cover up all evidence through using crematoriums and things like that. At least that's how I understand it, that obviously this can only flourish in silence and in darkness, and so they are very careful about conducting themselves in a way that they can't be discovered.
How did you get free of this, Patty?
At this point, I don't know how I got free of it. I have not had the memories of it. I do know that as soon as I started having memories that I was no longer part of the group because at that point they could not control me.
Is that group still a group?
Pardon me?
Is that group still a group?
I can't honestly answer that. I presume that there is still a group there, but not having knowledge of it, I don't want to say yes or no to that.
Bonnie, did you and your sister kind of get out of this at the same time?
Well, as both of us really don't know exactly when we got out, but we did go into therapy, which is where the memories began to be recovered. I went in first, and then about 6 months later, Patty came into therapy.
Well, going to therapy is a great sign. What took you to therapy?
Therapy originally, I went to therapy because I was having some marital problems with my husband. He had gone in before me, and then I wound up in therapy and decided to stay on after the separation. And during that period of time, in an atmosphere where there was sufficient kindness and care, the memories began to come back. When I went into therapy, I didn't remember anything from the first 7.5 years of my life, absolutely nothing except one single memory.
Patty, what was your mother's defense?
She basically said that she did not do it and that we had been coerced by our therapist or led by our therapist into thinking these things. And, of course, that is completely incorrect. There is no way to lead anybody into thinking these things. In fact, I wish this wasn't true, and I wish this hadn't happened to me.
We'll be right back with Bonnie with us at our studios in Los Angeles. Patty on the phone will be joined by Jeffrey Victor, professor of sociology at Jamestown Community College, who has some questions to ask about all of this. We'll be including your questions as well. Jacqueline Bissett will join us. Ted Turner tomorrow night. Bruce Willis Friday. Don't go away.
Did you sexually abuse your daughters?
Absolutely not.
Are you a participant in any cult?
No, sir.
Do you worship Satan in any fashion?
Pardon me?
Do you worship Satan in any fashion?
Not at all.
Bonnie, we are not using their last name. By phone is Patty. They were involved in this trial in Los Angeles. I will say on a personal note, there are many other things that were introduced at this trial by the plaintiffs, Bonnie and her sister, that are very hard to describe on television. But trust me, this is a family show, so it'll be very difficult to describe it. Lots of weird things were charged happening to these two ladies. We're joined by Jeffrey Victor, professor of sociology at Jamestown Community College in New York. What do you make of this?
Well, I think that it's essentially like the Salem witchcraft trials. It's a form of collective behavior that's sweeping the country. And
The cults themselves?
No. There's no evidence whatsoever, no substantial evidence, no verifiable evidence of any organized group like a mafia that follows Satanism and commits crimes.
Like the Geraldo Rivera specials.
Right.
That is not true.
What does exist, however, is a kind of collective behavior in which different kinds of circumstances get distorted, out of shape, and then misunderstood. For example, in the Salem witchcraft trials, the whole witchcraft trial started by 13, 14, 15-year-old girls going into convulsions, claiming that they were hexed by witches. And then when a few authority figures, ministers, physicians said that they were, it took off like wildfire. And they believe there are witches everywhere.
I understand that, and that can happen, but here are two sisters. I mean, they obviously have very little childhood memories. They go into therapy. Bonnie goes into where another starts to come out.
Right.
If it's not that, what is it?
How do I understand it? I think they are absolutely sincere in expressing their experience, but their experience comes from the therapist. There are therapists all over the country today, many of them that are not really qualified to be therapists, that are passing on these stories.
Why?
We call it a contemporary legend. Why? There are a variety of reasons. If you're looking for motives, you'd have to know particular individuals. They believe the stories. I think they're sincere, too.
No, wait.
They believe the stories.
Bonnie sits with her therapist. In therapy, remembers a story of being impregnated at age 11 and killing her own daughter.
No.
She doesn't remember that.
No. She has vague sense of being ill at ease, okay? And memories of terrifying but vaguely defined experience. And the therapist may say, well, did anything like this or that happen? Okay?
In other words, this happens a lot in your experience. The therapist draws it out by the therapist making the suggestion.
Right.
As was the case in the fraud of that person who regressed childhoods, who found out that the hypnotist was suggesting where they were 600 years ago, right? That's what you're saying is similar to this. So
it's like therapists who believe in reincarnation have patients that, after some therapy, reveal reincarnation experiences.
Bonnie, how do you respond?
Well, I respond first of all by saying that at no time in therapy did Dr. Moss ever lead me toward anything. That's part of the way that he works. There was no hypnosis used, nothing of that nature at all. These memories came back spontaneously without him ever leading me toward anything or suggesting one single thing to me. And during the course of the trial, this was made very clear even by witnesses for the other side. There was not one shred of evidence by anyone that he ever suggested these things. Plus, I'd never read about them either, heard about them, or anything.
Don't you wish, this is for Bonnie and Patty, don't you wish that Jeffrey's right? That this didn't happen? That this is nobody's fault? I can't tell you how much I wish that he were right.
Why not lean that way? It might make you better, your mother better, your sister better. Why not lean the way Jeffrey suggests, rather than go around thinking that you killed your own daughter when maybe you didn't?
Well, my experience is that these things happen because as the memories come back, they're relived in every part of the body. They have undercut my entire life with tremendous emotional difficulties throughout life, and I don't really have a life unless I go through this process, recover the memories, and go on from there.
Patty, what do you think?
Well, we can't be making these things up. There is no way, and our therapist never said anything to us about this. I've never even been to a horror movie because they terrify me. I've read nothing about this, and I was absolutely shocked. And I mean shocked to find out this is what had happened to me. But I had had horrible symptoms all my life. I had had 2 nervous breakdowns. I had fears that I would hurt people when I was a teenager, and I had no idea why, because I was a completely nonviolent person, and I went through absolute torture.
So like Bonnie, you wish Jeffrey is correct, you think he is not?
Absolutely.
Jeffrey? We seem to be at status quo here. They think it happened. You can't prove it didn't. You can't prove this negative.
You cannot prove a negative. And that's the problem in these kinds of cases. It's like trying to disprove that there's a communist conspiracy and there are communists in all towns.
If I said I went to the moon this morning.
Right.
You can't disprove that I didn't go.
Right. And so the onus is on people who claim that they have been victimized by satanic cults to provide concrete, verifiable evidence. There are people who claim they've been abducted by UFOs and been tortured by people in UFOs. There are people who claim that they've been reincarnated from past lives where they were tortured and burned at the stake. It is their responsibility to provide some verifiable evidence. Otherwise, we can wind up believing anything. And conspiracy theories are very seductive to believe.
Bonnie, do you remember where the murder took place?
A great deal of activity was in some caves in mountains, but the point that I would really like to make is that I don't believe either my sister or I, or during the trial were we claiming there was any kind of nationwide conspiracy. Our point is that this kind of abuse goes on within families, and then families band together, passing down pain from generation to generation.
Do you buy that, Jeffrey?
I
I think Jeffrey was concerned by the fact that people do think they are nationalists. They're national cults everywhere. And you never said that. But his concern is that people may think
there are many people around the country in many cases like this of people making claims that there are nationally organized networks of
But what do they gain out of it? I mean, what are Bonnie and Patty gaining out of this?
I think they gain an explanation for their painful experience.
Which may be another kind of experience.
Which is another
You don't
kind
deny
of
they may have had child abuse.
It's entirely possible. They may have been victims of child abuse. It's entirely possible that it's not necessarily so, but it's entirely possible they may have been abused by their parents or one of their parents. But people who have dissociative disorder find it difficult to get their thinking together. They're kind of like sponges that soak up the diseases of the age. And,
but 10 out of 12 people believe them.
10 out of 12 people believe that there were communists in every little village in the United States. 10 out of 12 people believe that the witches were going to take over Massachusetts Bay Colony.
We'll be right back with Bonnie, Patty on the phone, and Jeffrey Victor will include your phone calls. Then Jacqueline Bissett. Tomorrow night, Ted Turner. Wednesday, Bill Murray. This is Larry King Live. Don't go away.
There was a pentagram on his chest. Now, was that a pentagram painted on? Was it carved on?
It was cut. He was to my right. And the knife was in my right hand. And I just held it. And someone else put their hand on mine and raised the hand up and went through the pentagram down through.
Jeffrey Victor, professor of sociology at Jamestown Community College in New York. We're going to go to your calls. We have mentioned the therapist. As I understand, Jeffrey, this is not a psychologist, right? It's not a doctor.
No, he was a Christian therapist. He has a bachelor's degree in business administration and training in divinity. And he's what you might call a pastoral counselor. So he may have had very little psychology. But there's no licensing in many states for therapists.
Bonnie, he's not a doctor?
Yeah, I would like to take issue with that. He has a PhD in pastoral counseling that included many years of analytic training. He has been practicing for about 14 years. And he has been dealing with these kinds of dissociative disorders and multiple personality disorder for 9 years, which makes him something of an expert. So I really disagree on all kinds of grounds with what you've said about him.
Los Angeles, hello.
Yes, Larry, great show. Doctor, I'm on your side. I can't buy any of this. These women can't produce any shred of evidence. The one woman says she was molested in caves. Where are the caves? Out in Palmdale? Were they in Irvine, Tustin? You know, can you take us to the caves and show it to us? And the other thing is, this thing is like the kitchen sink of complaints. I'm sure they're going to bring up heavy metal music and bestiality and God knows what else.
You want to respond, Bonnie?
I can understand why no one wants to believe any of these things. I wish I didn't have to believe them. But these things go on, and just like we were with incest 10 years ago, no one wanted to believe that fathers were molesting their daughters. We're there now with these kinds of things. There's a lot of physical evidence out there. My daughter was molested. We did have physical evidence of that. The caves, 40 years ago, I was a child. I'm not sure I could take you there to those exact caves. But we do have all kinds of things going on very often with animals cut up ritualistically and being left all over Tustin, California. But I understand why no one wants to believe. No one could possibly want to believe this, but it's happening, and we need to begin to break our denial down and look at it. And the jury was able to do that by listening to the three of us over the course of that trial.
Wallingford, New Jersey. Hello.
Good evening, Larry and guests. I have a question for the sociologist.
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand your point, sir. Are you saying that satanic cults do not exist? And the reason I ask this is because I'm a practicing Wiccan. We are an earth religious type of group that predates Christianity. So we don't believe in the devil, or Satan, if you will. And I know that there are neighboring towns, police departments that investigate very often cult activities that involve sacrificing animals and so forth, and very often Wiccans or witches are blamed.
Well, what is your question?
I'd like to know, is he saying that satanic cults do not exist?
It depends upon what the meaning of a satanic cult is. Means different things.
A group that gets together and sacrifices animals with wearing black capes, I would call a satanic cult.
There are teenagers that get together and sacrifice animals.
The novel Rosemary's
that's a
Baby
satanic cult.
I think that's our judgment factor. Rosemary's Baby was a satanic cult. Do you agree with that? Ira Levin was writing about a satanic cult. It was
I would
fiction.
agree that there are people who people in life who imitate art. Yes.
Naples, Florida. Hello.
Good evening. I'd like to know what her relationship is with her mother and what this accusation is doing to her mother as far as pain-wise.
Patty?
I don't see my mother any longer. I haven't since I started having my first memories after she refused to go into therapy. And I really don't know what it's doing to her. I'm sure it's not a happy situation for her either. It's not a happy situation for me either. I was very close with my mother.
Bonnie, do you see your mother?
I don't see my mother now. I think it is truly a family tragedy. More than anything, my sister and I wanted Mother to get into therapy to deal with what was going on. I feel incredibly sad for what has happened in our family.
Santa Monica, California. If they bring it down, I'll get it. Santa Monica, hello.
Yes, Larry, first I'd like to congratulate you on being elected captain of the Washington Capitals hockey team for next year.
Thank you.
Yes, but I'd like to ask the ladies, first I'd like to say I sympathize with them. I'd like to ask them, how do these cults tend to cover up their activities when the McMartin preschool thing?
Now, how do they get away with it, Bonnie? Or wouldn't you know since it's memory?
I know some things, but I don't think I can give really accurate answers to a lot of that. I know the evidence is often burnt. It's hidden away. It's extremely important that it not be known about. I assume there are some burials, but I can't give you a really accurate answer about that, only that it needs to thrive in the dark on denial to keep going.
Jeffrey, you're keeping all your options open, right?
I think that this is the folklore of the age.
Thank you all very much. Bonnie in Los Angeles, Patty by phone, and Jeffrey Victor, professor of sociology, Jamestown Community College in New York. We'll pause and come back with the lovely and very talented Jacqueline Bissett. Tomorrow night, Ted Turner visits for a full hour. Bill Murray will join us on Wednesday. And Friday night, a full hour with Bruce Willis. We'll all be back after this. Don't go away.